Hiya and welcome to the channel. And if you've never seen any of our stuff before, then I'm Kath and I'm travelling full-time in our motorhome with my partner Sue and our two dogs, Archie and Fudge. We've been doing that for about 8 months now, living full-time in the motorhome. So I thought I'd made this video to give you what I think are the top 10 essentials when planning a long motorhome trip in the UK. So if you are completely new to motorhoming or you're planning your very first long trip, then this video's for you. So please give us a thumbs up. We really do appreciate that. It helps the channel grow. And well, otherwise let's get straight into it. Keep watching because number 10 is my favourite and I think the best of all the 10. So number 1, and this is probably the one that's most key, and if you've got a motorhome already, then you can probably just fast forward and skip this little bit. But this is about choosing the right motorhome for you. So things like size you need to think about because that will impact on the type of driving licence you've got. So the one that we've got, it needs C1 on the licence because it's classed as a light goods vehicle. Storage, layout inside. One of the things that was really important to us is that we had a fixed bed. We didn't want to be faffing about making up a bed because we might want to get up or go to bed at different times, and therefore having a fixed bed was really important. That was the no compromise issue for us. Storage is really important. We are living in our motorhome, so when we picked this one, the one we've got now, with that in mind. So we've got a big garage at the back to be able to put all the stuff that we don't necessarily need day-to-day access to, but when you're putting your whole life into a motorhome, you need that big storage. Now I did, earlier in our travels, I did do a video tour of our motorhome, and I'll try and stick that up there somewhere, so you've got a link to that. You can have a look at that if you want to. But what we'd strongly recommend is you find a nice big dealership or even go to one of the motorhome shows and just have a look around all of the different layouts of motorhomes. Think about what your own use might be and start with that first before you then go out and buy the one that is going to work for you. So if you think I've moved a little bit, I have. The light here is shifting because of the sun coming up and it's a lovely day in the trees. So I hope that's not too off-putting. But number 2 is getting your van ready. So some of this is really quite obvious, but it's always worth going over it. So things like MOT, service, if you're somebody that wants to make sure you have a habitation check. I know there's some controversy about that, but we certainly like to make sure that we've got no damp build-up or anything like that. We can fix it really quickly. Checking the tyres, checking the oil, making sure that you've got the right insurance cover, and breakdown cover as well. And that's one of those things you hope you're never going to have to use, but just a few weeks ago we found that we did have to use our breakdown cover, and whilst it wasn't a brilliant experience, we were at least rescued from being stuck on a motorway. So a really important thing to consider. So next, what to pack. Now you've got to remember you've always got a small space in a motorhome. It's never going to be as big, and you're never going to have as many cupboards as you've got at home. So if you're planning a long trip, you really need to think about what you're going to take. And for us, because we're living in it all year round, we have to take both the winter stuff and the summer stuff and then find out how we're going to rotate that. But what are the things? I've got a box of kind of tools and spares, bits and bobs that I might need to occasionally do little fixes. I've got a really good toolbox that was a present for me that Sue bought me, so I can fix most things that are pretty simple. But and you might be able to do an awful lot more than I can, so make sure you've got those things on board with you when you go. Oh, and for us, of course, we always have to think about provisions for the dogs. So we have beds that they sleep on inside the van. We have some beds that we stick outside when it's dry enough and outside the van, and they just get stored away in the boot. We carry really big tubs of food in the boot, and then we decant into smaller boxes that we put in the inside for that day-to-day use, and then we need to restock that about once every 3 days from what we've got in the boot. Okay, so planning your route once you've decided where you're going to next. Well, we use our phones for sat-nav. There is a sat-nav in the van, but the nice thing about phones, and we've both got iPhones, is you get those reroutes if the traffic is really bad, which we find very handy. However, we are a big vehicle, and therefore some routes that the sat-nav will take you down are not the best route. What we also carry, if I just go across here is this big traditional map. And this is one that's the Caravan and Camping Club map, and I did quite a lot of research to decide which particular, because there's lots of them. When I researched that, a lot of truckers actually use this because it's got really good height and width restrictions. So if it's good enough for the truckers, I thought it was good enough for me, and we will often, particularly if we're in Wales or the Lake District or some parts of Scotland, we will have a really good look at the map as well, just to make sure that we're picking a route which is suitable for the size of the vehicle that we're driving. So I'm already up to number 5, and that's where to stay. And that's very much a personal choice. So do you want to wild camp or stealth camp, as some people call it? Do you want to use campsites? And if you're going to use campsites, what kind of facilities do you want? So is it one, so in the summer in particular, we use a lot of very small rural sites, Caravan and Camping Club, CL sites, CS sites, Caravan and Motorhome Club, CL sites, and we've paid as little as £7 a night, and all we get with that is fresh water and somewhere to put our chemical waste, but that's good value. And then we might stay at larger sites. Sue likes the larger sites, particularly when we're getting round to laundry day, because they often have laundry facilities. And then we'll pay more. We'll pay anything really from about this time of year, £25, right up to about £35 if we want electric hookup, laundry facilities, toilet and shower blocks. So it's really a bit of personal choice, and we tend to mix it up a little bit. We tend not to do wild camps, or we have done a little bit, but we're quite a big vehicle, so we're not quite as unobtrusive as some, and we take up a bit more space. So we try to be thoughtful for people around us, and we'll tend to use the sites, but the ones we prefer are the small ones. Not many people, don't need lots of facilities. We've got great facilities on board, so we don't need very much. In the winter, it's nice to have electric hookup and not have any anxiety about how long your batteries go, although we've got great solar panels, so for us it's not too much of a problem. But for us, we like to mix it up. And then how do we find our places to stay? So we are members of the Caravan and Motorhome Club, the Camping and Caravan Club, and we use their apps. There's a great app that you can get called Search for Sites, and that includes those sites, all the CS and CL sites, and lots of other independent sites as well, and some park ups. There's an app which we don't tend to use, Park for Night, but I know that a lot of van lifers use that because it's lots of free places that you can park overnight. And then just generally, go on Google, Mr. Google, and look there as well. What I should say, of course, is if you watch YouTube and you watch other van lifers, you can get lots and lots of tips about where they go and stay. And there are a couple that I watch frequently. There are loads of them, by the way. But the ones that I watch, I love the Urban Motorhome. He's a jolly person and he just makes me smile every time I watch. Camper Vibe. They're on the road an awful lot, and the photographs are brilliant. And then there's a couple called Those Happy Days, and they're the 3 sites that I tend to watch, and because I think they're great. So I'll put a link to them if I can work out how to do that. But there are loads out there, and I'm sure you'll find those that you connect with and enjoy watching too. Right, we're now up to number 6. And that's really about thinking about the whole family. So for Sue and I, it's the 2 of us, but we've also got 2 dogs as well. Now, we both love walking, and that's really handy because dogs like that as well. But we have to be quite considerate around Archie. He's 12 years old. He's got some arthritis in one of his joints in particular, and he needs lots of medication. So we need to make sure that we're doing walks that are suitable for him. Which tends to be up to about an hour. If we do a pub stop in the middle, which is really nice, then we can do an hour there and an hour back. And we can't really these days do anything steep because it's his front elbow that's most affected, and so coming down steep slopes is quite painful for him. So at the moment, at least, we're going to stick to flatter type walks because that's something that works for the whole family. I like to do some open water swimming whenever I can, but I've got to fit it around what works for everybody else as well. We use an application, and I don't know why it took us so long to get this and use this, but an application called OS Maps, and it is the kind of online version of the Ordnance Survey maps essentially, but it is really, really easy to use. It's really comprehensive. It captures where not only the map, but actually where you are on the map. So for us finding walks, for Sue finding runs, we find it absolutely invaluable and really good value for money. We use that almost every day. So I can't recommend that enough. And they're not sponsoring this video, that is just my personal opinion. Okay, so now getting about. We don't tow a car with us. So once we land somewhere, then we tend to park up the motorhome. We tend to be in places for 3 days. That's about, we find the best time for us. Might be sometimes less, sometimes more, but about 3 days is right. So getting about, well, of course we do a lot of walking, but if we wanted to visit a town centre, for example, we are really good now at using buses and trains, and in some cases we even use boats. And if you check out some of our videos from the Lake District, you'll see us and the dogs on boats, and not just for the boat trip itself, but because it can get us to another side of the lake, for example, where we can pick up another walk. And the dogs are getting really used to that now, used to travelling on public transport. And do you know what? After driving a car for many, many years before we were living in our motorhome, I hadn't used public transport for a long time, but you know, it's good fun and you meet some really interesting people. So what about shopping? Well, the fridge isn't as big as our fridge at home, so we shop more frequently. And then, of course, when we are doing shopping, we're looking for somewhere that we can get to, that we can park as easily as possible. So for us, one of the best ways for us to do that, particularly as we move every 3 days or so, is to use that move on day to find a supermarket en route. And we will tend to look for the big out of town supermarkets where they've got a big car park, where we can park at the far end away from everywhere else, everyone else, just to try to be considerate, because we do take up a bit of space. And also, if we can, we will try to avoid the weekend, because that's when it's busier. What else about shopping? Well, I've mentioned laundry already. We need to use laundrettes if we stay at a site, and that's the easiest thing for us to do, is to pick a bigger site with laundry facilities, and we can do it whilst on site. But we've also used laundrettes in when we've been parked close enough to a town or place to be able to visit a local laundrette. Now, let me just check my notes just in case I've forgotten anything. Yes, deliveries. So we probably use that company called Amazon as much as anybody else. And if we need things that are through Amazon or any other place, to be fair, that need to be delivered, then we tend to try to have it delivered to a friend or relative that we know that in the future we are going to be able to catch up with, either because we've already arranged to catch up with them, or they're not far off a route that's in the direction. And so we'll always give them a ring, ask them if it's all right to have things delivered to them, and then we'll meet up and pick things up. That works for us. But of course there are lots of lock boxes that are used by the big companies, where you can have your parcel delivered to a box and then collect it from there. We have on occasion had things delivered to the site that we're on, but not all sites like that. So you just have to be a little bit careful about making those arrangements without checking how easy it is going to be for a delivery driver to get onto a site. And reception, well, they don't really like taking deliveries, and you can really understand that. So that's how we kind of get those things, my gadgets in particular, that's how we get those kind of things. We just have them delivered to relatives. Right, we're getting close to the end now, because we're up to number 9. And that's medical stuff. So this is always really tricky for us, because Sue needs medication she was diagnosed with epilepsy a few years ago, so she needs medication for that. She's absolutely fine, by the way, but she does need a medication to keep it that way. And Archie needs loads of medication for his arthritis, and one of his medications in particular is a human control drug called gabapentin, and we really struggle with that because we found some pharmacies will accept an email of the prescription from the vets, and some won't. So we've had to come up with a plan B, which is in effect we arrange for somebody local to our home to go and collect it from the vet and pass it on to us. So you have to think about that. And then what about us? Flu jabs in our case, because we're old enough to qualify for those. COVID jabs, you get the reminders through from your doctors. Dentists, fitting all that in around your motorhome trip, and what we tend to try and come back close to home. We don't go home, but we come and stay close to home, cram all that kind of stuff in, and then we head off again. And thankfully we don't need to do that too often. If you do have to do that too often, I'm not sure I have any really easy solution. I'm sorry about that, but it's definitely something to think about if you're doing a long trip and you think and you're going to need some kind of regular medication, etc. Something to really consider and make sure it's in your plan. And now we are on to number 10, and this is my favourite, so I do hope you've carried on watching. So number 10 is my favourite. Document your memories. So before we started living in our motorhome, when we got our first motorhome, which is about 7 years ago now, I used to keep a little note of where we'd been. I used to illustrate myself, and I can't draw for toffee. But I really enjoyed just keeping what I call my motorhome memoirs. And when I retired, somebody said to me, "Will you carry on when you're living in your motorhome? Will you carry on writing your motorhome memoirs?" And I thought, well, probably not. What would I write if I'm living in it every day? And then somebody said you should do a vlog. Hence the reason why I'm here now doing a vlog. And I know I've got a lot to learn in terms of videoing, quality, editing. I'm just reading about L cuts and J cuts. I mean, goodness me, I'm going to be playing with that for the next one maybe. But I'm having so much fun learning about it. I'm having lots and lots of fun filming and capturing all the things that we do. And I know that in years to come, when we look back, all of that stuff will be there on YouTube, and we'll be able to watch it, and it will take us straight back to all the fun that we have. And if you enjoy it, if you would like to have a look at what we do, then please, I've already said give us a thumbs up, so I'll say that again. But if you're not subscribed already, subscribe to our channel. Follow us on our journey and our adventures and our post-retirement fun. And I really hope that you enjoy that. And I hope this video has been helpful to you. I'm really, really interested to hear anybody's comments. If they think they do things in a different way or plan things in a different way, or they've got any top tips, then I'd be really interested to hear that. So, but otherwise, all I'll say is I will see you next time. Bye-bye.